Dear friends, we wholeheartedly welcome you on behalf of the School of the Golden Rosy Cross in Ireland today with this first issue of the Rays of Light of Universal Knowledge. We have started this initiative because we strongly believe that the universal knowledge about who we are, where we come from, and what our assignment and task in life is out there. It's dispersed in so many sources, in books, mystery schools, teachings, streams, legends, myths, etc., that we thought it would be worthwhile in the here and now in which we live to bring all these sources together and present them to you just as they are, so without any further interpretation, as rays of light, hoping that they will form one bundle of light that can speak directly to your consciousness. We are planning to hold these meetings monthly on the third Sundays of the month, so that it will become a sort of a permanent factor for us to really tie in with all these ancient sources and knowledge that is out there. This month's theme, February, is knowledge, wisdom, because that is, and you will find that is what we all lack, true knowledge, gnosis, that makes us incomplete, and that makes it difficult for us to understand who we are and where we are going. Maybe you know that in the Irish mythology, but also in Celtic mythology, the kuil, the hazel, is the symbol of wisdom. And Mercury is also a symbol of wisdom. So this month's issue, revolves about wisdom that we need to get there where we really want to be, the original field of life, the Tir na Nog. There are 6 musical interludes, specially prepared for this meeting, composed by Paul. We tried to play them live, but Zoom technically didn't allow it, so we have them pre-recorded, but they were made for this meeting, especially. After the last text, we will simply all leave with that, what we carry inside of us of these rays of light. And we simply hope that it may have kindled your little flame in your heart. We wish you a very inspiring, igniting, blessed meeting. And I give the word to Donna.
We will begin this meditative meeting with the old Irish legend, the Sinnin and the Well of Knowledge. The Jin Shanahas, the early Irish book of place lore, describes the story of the forming of the river Shannon, who in the tale is personified as a maiden. The maiden's name was Sinnin, a daughter of the Tuatha De Danann tribe, and she yearned to seek out the sacred well of wisdom, to see her reflection there upon the sacred waters, to gain the wisdom for which its lack of made her incomplete. Sinnin was said to have attained all accomplishments, a bright and radiant woman, but lacked only this one form of knowledge. And so she travelled undersea to the otherworldly region of Conla in search of it. It is said that 9 sacred hazel trees surround this well in which the heavenly fruit ripens and fall upon the sparkling waters of the well. The poet G.W. Russell writes, "And when the sun sets dimmed in eve, and purple fills the air, I think the sacred hazel tree is dropping berries there. From starry fruitage waved aloft where Conla's well overflows, for sure the immortal waters run through every wind that blows." It was there that Sinnin, the river Shannon, literally found herself, her own source, in this fountainhead of wisdom. In seeing herself in the well, it bubbled up so ferociously, and it flowed forth, creating the river where Sinan herself drowned. We can understand the universal wisdom contained in this Irish myth, whereby the personality surrenders to and merges with the eternal fount of wisdom from which the living waters flow forth into the world as an unceasing stream.
In the Tao Te Ching, chapter 8, we read, "The sage's heart is as deep as an abyss." One can see why chapter 8 of the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu compares the way of life to be lived by the liberation-seeking personality with water. Water is a sublime, universal symbol of the power radiations of the new life, of Kanla. Just as the ordinary human being lives and moves in the electromagnetic radiation field of dialectics, so the pupil who, through the sacrifice of the self, has established a liberating link with the spirit of the valley, the God in him, he will enter and live in the new electromagnetic radiation field. This is the true living water, which is poured out over him and fills every corner of his existence. In this stream of new power, he becomes a new creation, a new creature. He undergoes a new genesis, a new beginning. This process can be compared with the first Genesis, when the Spirit of God moved over the face of the waters and created a firmament in their midst. For when the living water is poured out over the candidate, he too gains a new firmament. It is the new Lipika, a new magnetic system which imparts to him a quite new and different personality consciousness. He is again ensouled by his only God, who works for his salvation. We read from the Egyptian Arch Gnosis, part 3. Hermes says, the Gnosis of the good is both divine silence and the stilling of all the senses. The fundamental nature, a perpetual silence, maintains an immutable current, arising from its essence, desire, and from its will, the result of which is activity. Its desire encompasses the whole divine idea. The Father's plan of manifestation, the absolute wisdom. The activity of this current reveals what animates the idea as images, thought forms. It is the high reality of divine cognition, the divine thoughts, which must be fulfilled by perfect human beings. The fundamental nature, Kanla, speaks, as it were, to the candidate. That is why the prologue of the Gospel according to John testifies of the Word. The Word of God is not some written or printed language, composed with a great deal of wrangling and debate by a council of church fathers. The Word of God is the voice of the fundamental nature, of Kanla, where the fountainhead of wisdom is to be found and where we can all travel inwardly. It needs not surprise you in any way, for you can do the same, producing the word yourself. When you produce thoughts, these are manifested as images. When you think of a tree, or a flower, or a plant, or a human being, the corresponding image immediately forms in the aura of your head, in your head sanctuary. And you speak by means of these thought images. And you can enter into contact with fellow creatures merely through the exchange of thought images. Well, that is the word as it is meant here. The Word of God is the voice of the fundamental nature, the otherworldly region of Kanla. The divine thought works in cooperation with the fundamental nature, and in this way, whole series of divine thought images arise. And this voice, this word, can only be understood in silence. By this, we do not mean meditation, or concentration, or yoga exercises, or a life of continuous prayer. We mean the absolute inner silence of the entire being, which may or may not be engaged in performing its ordinary daily work. One can only become silent in this way on the basis of a pure soul state, to establish the intellectual brain consciousness in purity. That means in non-attachment, in abstention from criticism, in a life of harmony and in love. Then the spirit soul, as Hermes calls the heart and the head when functioning in combination, the spirit soul awakens, and then the system experiences an intense inner peace. Then one undergoes, sensorially, the fathomless silence of the fundamental nature. In this silence, the fire of the astral body is kindled in mildness. the fierceness of the astral fire, and all its results, they fade away. And the aura around the heart begins to give evidence of this. And via the astral body, via this new state, the etheric body is irradiated and assuaged.
The four holy ethers, the sea to which Kamla can be reached, are liberated as four sanctifying foods, which nourish the body and all its organs, including the blood, with the newly born silence, with inner peace. Only in this way is the whole of one's being made receptive to the voice of the silence, to the word of the twofold fundamental nature. And without having to say a single thing about it, you will then see, you will recognize. This inner understanding does not involve struggle. If you prepare your being, you will understand the voice of the silence. Then you will recognize him who wishes to be recognized, and you will be able to direct your life accordingly. He who begins to live from this state, he who has found the gnosis of the good, can no longer pay attention to anything else. He who has once beheld it will no longer see anything else, nor can he listen to anything else. And even his body participates in this immobility, where all physical perceptions and stimuli have vanished from his consciousness. He remains in tranquility. The story of the Salmon of Knowledge. The Salmon of Knowledge is an ancient Irish legend of the folklore hero Finn McCool and how he came to gain all the world's wisdom. There once lived a young man by the name of Demne, who was the son of Cúil Mac Art. His father, Cúil Mac Art, was slain while Demne was still in his mother's womb. Fearing for the boy's life, his mother sent him away to be trained by a druid on the Isle of Skye. Knowing that no one would harm a druid, his mother felt he was safe from the same fate as his father. And so Finn grew up to become a master of many arts through the teaching of the druid. His wish was that he too, like his father, would become the leader of the legendary Irish warriors, Na Fianna, one day. However, he did not deem that the time had come for him to seize the captaincy of the Fianna until he had perfected himself in wisdom and learning. And so he sought to gain wisdom from a bard named Finnegas, who dwelt by the river Boyne. Finnegas had spent 7 years fishing for the legendary Salmon of Knowledge. This magical salmon was said to be imbued with the sacred knowledge from the well of Sigash, the source of all knowledge and wisdom. It was said that 9 sacred hazel trees surrounded the well, whereupon their magical fruits would fall into the water in which the salmon was said to have eaten and gained its wisdom. Whoever first ate the flesh of the salmon will become the wisest among all of men. Finnegas the bard had spent 7 years watching that pool, but it wasn't until Demne had come to be his disciple was the salmon caught. And then Finnegas gave it to Demne to cook, but he warned him not to taste of its flesh. However, whilst Demne cooked the salmon, he burnt his thumb from a spark of its flesh and instantly sucked it to ease the pain. In that moment, he had been granted its wisdom. When Finnegas saw him coming with the fish, he knew that something had changed, for the sparkle he saw in his eyes. Finnegas said, "Hast thou eaten of the salmon?" "Nay," said Demne, "but it burnt me as I turned it upon the spit, and I put my thumb in my mouth." And Finnegas smote his hands together and was silent for a while. Then he said to Demne, who stood by obediently, "Take the salmon and eat it. Your name shall now be Finn, son of Cúil, for to thee the prophecy is come. And now go hence, for I cannot teach thee no more, and blessing and victory be thine." Thereafter, Finn McCool became the leader of the Fianna warriors. This story shows that wisdom will be bestowed upon us seekers when we least expect it and feeling unworthy of it.
We now read to you a fragment of De Gloria Intacta from Jan van Rijkenborg. Exoteric astrology teaches that Mercury has no voice of its own, but is only a messenger, in the sense of a postman, no more. The pupil must learn to realize, however, that the new Mercury endows the man ennobled thereto with God's fullest and richest revelation. When this messenger begins to speak, then he says, "These things saith he that holdeth the 7 stars in his right hand, who walketh in the midst of the 7 golden candlesticks." In other words, the highest wisdom is ready to reveal itself to the fullest extent. It refers here to the unveiling, the birth of a new thinking faculty. A portion of the heavenly figure, Finn McCool, is being generated and breaks into the counterpart of the old man, Demne. And one of the most tremendous consequences of this is the manifestation of the famous first-hand knowledge, the direct access to the universal doctrine. This initiation is not conferred by a teacher or elder brother, but it requires a process of overcoming from the bottom up, an inheritance in store for every pupil. This does not mean that any help of and collaboration with possibly highly exalted third persons, like the Druid on the Isle of Skye, through all the ups and downs attending this process, is precluded. But at this point we must declare emphatically that the fundamental condition for initiation is always self-Freemasonry. Having access to the universal doctrine means being connected anew with the absolute being of God, possessing the absolute knowledge which is with God and of God, in conformity with the personal state of being. The pupil who has access to the universal doctrine will be able to understand God's plan in relation to the world and humankind, directly and without intermediaries. He can read in the memory of nature, both in regard to the past and the future. Mercury, the messenger of the light, the angel standing before God, transmits his lofty and all-embracing wisdom to him. He who possesses these faculties has become, in a multiple and absolute sense, a solar initiate, as mentioned by the ancients. He or she who enters the holy sunlight in this manner, who applies and uses this light, must die to everything of this nature, as it is said of Moses and John the Baptist and of Sinan. As soon as the promised land is revealed, all is over with the earthly man.
Self-Surrender by Mahatma Gandhi. Our existence as embodied beings is purely momentary. What are 100 years in eternity? But if we shatter the chains of egotism and melt into the ocean of humanity, we share its dignity. To feel that we are something is to set up a barrier between God and ourselves. To cease feeling that we are something is to become one with God. A drop in the ocean partakes of the greatness of its parent, although it is unconscious of it. But it is dried up as soon as it enters upon an existence independent of the ocean. As soon as we become one with the ocean in the shape of God, there is no more rest for us, nor indeed do we need rest any longer. Our very sleep is action, for we sleep with the thought of God in our hearts. This restlessness constitutes true rest. This never-ceasing agitation holds the key to peace ineffable. The supreme state of total surrender is difficult to describe, but not beyond the bounds of human experience. It has been attained by many dedicated souls and may be attained by ourselves as well.
A specific meaning of yoga appears in the Bhagavad Gita, namely, the balance of mind among pairs of opposites, uniformity of view on pairs of opposites. So the point is not to be for or against anything. The same attitude was also praised by Buddha, who taught the middle path. The Rosicrucians strive to stand in the heart of the cross, where the rose blooms and where the vertical stream of light crosses the horizontal line. And the Bhagavad Gita teaches Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge or gnosis. The wise call that man a sage, all of whose undertakings are devoid of the intention to achieve an object of desire, for his karma has been burned off by the fire of insight. Even if you are the worst criminal of them all. You will cross over all villainy with just your lifeboat of knowledge. Just as the blazing fire reduces its kindling to ashes, Arjuna, so the fire of knowledge makes ashes of all karma. For there is no means of purification the like of knowledge. And in time one will find that knowledge within oneself, when one is oneself perfected by yoga.
We read from the Brotherhood of Shambhala by Jan van Rijkenburg and Katarose de Petrie. The last remnant is a mystical term referring to those entities who are rising out of mankind's ordinary path of life by following the path to the original life. Those who belong to the last remnant are taken up into a new circle of existence. All others follow mankind's ordinary dialectical course, with its usual aspects, right to its ordinary destination, in accordance with the laws of nature. May it be given to all of you to plumb with us the depths of the abyss of universal knowledge. And may the revelation of the sons of wisdom, of the hidden holy land, lead all of you to rebirth. The 7 passages to Shambhala are being opened wide for you. You have only to enter. May the unpronounceable word, the word that is still lost, be revealed to you, now and for all eternity.
We would now like to conclude our meeting today with words from John O'Donoghue, the Irish poet and philosopher, from his book To Bless the Space Between Us. For a new beginning, in out of the way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the grey promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this?
Then the delight, when your courage kindled, and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with the energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. And though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you.